Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. He is the head of Nerd Initiative Wrestling. He is also a massive Shakespeare fan, and he's one of our featured bullpen writers on New Comic Book Day. Please give a warm welcome to Rich.
That's right. I am back again in front of the camera, not talking about wrestling, just about comics. So this is awesome. 2 weeks in a row. I don't know. Maybe this is becoming a permanent thing. Who knows? But at this point in juncture, I'm just happy to be here.
And sitting to his right at home, it's in his contract. He has to do his own intro.
Oh, no. What about this guy over here?
Well, we're going to get to him as well, but still, you're right down the line, sir. It's in your contract. You have to go.
Through what light does yon window break? It is the East, and coming at you live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name's Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. Fair Richard, my liege, Ken, and Sir Michael, and the bard himself, Mr. Anthony. 'Tis always the pleasure is mine.
Absolutely. And you know we have a special guest online when we can get the GEO, the founder of Nerd Initiative, in the building. Please give a welcome to Michael Rothman.
I'm not going anywhere. Let's go.
You definitely don't want to go anywhere because we have a very fantastic book to talk about, which is going to be hitting the stores on April 23rd, technically, for World Shakespeare Day. It's perfect timing. And this is one that you definitely don't want to miss because this is Romeo versus Juliet, a Kill Shakespeare Adventure. And we are very fortunate to have the writer on the line to talk with us about this. You know his work from such things as Assassin's Creed, Luke Cage, Everyman, a Pulitzer Prize winner in his own right, and also is known to be the brains behind Don't Listen to This on the BBC Podcast Network. Please welcome Anthony Del Col to the show. Anthony, what is going on?
That is quite the intro, and I hope you're not expecting me to do any Shakespeare verse right off the bat. It's been a long day, and there's no way I can top what was just done 1 minute ago. So, so thank you. Thank you for setting me up for failure already. I appreciate that.
It's my job.
No problem. No problem indeed. And like we touched upon, Romeo versus Juliet, a Kill Shakespeare Adventure is coming out in April. If anybody's not familiar with this, what is the Kill Shakespeare series all about?
Kill Shakespeare is quite simply, it's a mashup of all of Shakespeare's heroes and villains all together in the same world. The elevator pitch is it's Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones with Hamlet, Juliet, Richard III, Othello, Falstaff, Puck, Iago. If there's a great Shakespeare character, we've got it in there. Or if you want to sum it up all in 4 words, which is how I like to joke that we originally sold the concept 15 years ago, it's the Justice League of Shakespeare.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
There we go.
And definitely when readers pick this up, like I say, the newest adventure definitely is there, but also the first folio is out now and the second one is coming soon too. There's a lot to get behind this universe, would you say?
Yeah, especially because, the series debuted out in 2010. What made this the perfect time for it to return? What was the catalyst, brought this all on?
There were 2 things. One is, we'd put out 5 volumes of the graphic novel with IDW Publishing. We had put out a board game. We'd put out a stage production that's played in about 3 dozen cities worldwide, I think, including New York, London, and Dubai. We did an audio drama with Audible Germany, of all places, not in the English language, but in German. It still hasn't been adapted into English yet. We were in film and development. We were in development hell with Universal for TV. And just before the pandemic, everything kind of hit a roadblock. There were just a number of problems going on with, as you guys probably know, there were a bunch of problems with IDW. There were some things with Universal. It's just kind of like it was a maelstrom. It was it was a tempest, if you will. How's that for a reference? An Easter egg for any Shakespeare fans. Too. Exactly. But yeah, it was a confluence of all these things that kind of happened. And so Connor, my Kill Shakespeare co-creator, and I said, you know what? Let's get all the rights back. And so it took us about 2 or 3 years to get the comic publishing rights back, the license back, the film and TV rights back. There were lawyers involved. There was a buyout, blah, blah, blah. I'll spare you all those details. There was yelling at one point. But yeah, eventually back in 2022, we were able to get everything back. And so the series, we hadn't put anything out for a couple of years. And so I was sitting back one day, I think probably about 2022. And I was like, okay, when we bring this back, what's the story I want to tell? And immediately I had an image that came to mind, and it was of a high noon Western style showdown between Juliet and Romeo. And that this often happens, especially when it comes to comics, is I always have a central image that comes to mind. With Kill Shakespeare, the original Kill Shakespeare was a reverse balcony scene where Juliet climbs the balcony to see Hamlet. With Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, The Big Lie, or The Death of Nancy Drew, was the two Hardy brothers being interrogated by the police. It was, so always that central image, and this central image of Juliet and Romeo in a standoff, in this duel, kind of just hit me. And immediately I realized, well, this is what I wanted to do. This is the story I wanted to tell. And I kind of built it up from there. But in terms of why it's the best time, I mean, we've written this for that, so that it appeals to everybody. So for those that know their Shakespeare, but have never read a Kill Shakespeare book before, it's easy to get into. You've heard of Romeo, you've heard of Juliet. It's a fun adventure. It's a Western. It's the Magnificent Shakespeare 7, if you will. It's a great entry point for those that haven't read any Kill Shakespeare books, and for those that have, I mean, it is technically continuation. I like to think of this, or I've called it a remix, or compared it to what Damon Lindelof did with the Watchmen HBO series, where if you read Watchmen, I know I like to compare myself to the greatest, so both Shakespeare and Damon
Love
Lindelof.
it.
But I mean, with that one, if you've read the original Alan Moore series, then you'll get into it. But even if you haven't, it's a continuation, but there's new characters. It's kind of a new world. And they weave everything together. So it felt like now was the perfect time, because we were able to get everything back, and we found a story that really excited us.
Awesome. And with that being said, obviously Romeo and Juliet is kind of like, for people who are not initiated to Shakespeare at all, is kind of like the name that most people equate with Shakespeare, outside of, probably more than anything else. And so to do a versus, and you gave us kind of like how you came up with doing this concept. So for people who are going to buy this book, what is like the synopsis fully, not just the going beyond just the Western and putting them against each other?
Absolutely. I mean, I will start. I mean, the pitch is that it's an Elizabethan Western. Juliet Capulet, who we all know from Romeo and Juliet, is tasked with protecting a border town nunnery from invading forces. Those invading forces include her ex, Romeo Montague. And in order to protect the village and the nunnery, she has to rally her old friends together, namely Hamlet, Othello, Puck, and a bunch of others. So that's why I do joke around and jokingly refer to it as the Magnificent Shakespeare 7. Just like the original pitch was the Justice League of Shakespeare. And so that's sort of the concept. And then as they dive into it, as they prepare, they realize that not everything is as it seems with the nunnery. There's some secrets going on there. There's some magic, some fantasy at play. And even in the local community and some of the people around them, there's some mysterious things happening. So it's a lot of fun. If you like the Shakespeare, if you like Shakespeare, it's a fun adventure. If you like Westerns, if you like love triangles, I mean, the love triangle. Oh yes, that's the one thing I forgot to mention, is that while all this stuff is happening, Juliet is also pregnant, and the father may be Hamlet or maybe Romeo. And so we're going to find out. And so, and I mean, no spoilers here, but everything does culminate in that high noon Western showdown between Romeo and Juliet. Because that was the original image, and that was the one darling I didn't want to kill along the way. Although someone does die at the end, I will not tell you who it was.
The butler.
I was going to say, and neither will we. We won't.
Yeah, there will be no spoilers here.
There will be no spoilers, but I will say this: it does mix two things that I love very much, Shakespeare and Westerns, and it works very well. So,
thank you.
I make no promises about the spoilers, but whatever.
It's your website. I mean,
you are the boss, so it's
well, Mr. Del Col. Let's get down to brass
Mr.
tacks.
Rossman, yes, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still here. Okay.
Yeah, I was sitting in the corner. It's fine. I was pulling my best Hamlet. No, I was going to ask if you had to be familiar with Shakespeare to kind of jump into this, but you answered that already. So I will steal what we asked the audience. You know, I mean, you have like a whole amazing cast of characters. Are there any that you have aside from the main, you know, maybe the supporting cast that are your favorite in that universe? You know, obviously you have Hamlet, you have Shakespeare, you have Romeo and Juliet. Are there any ones that pop out that are really, because you have a lot of fun characters in there, especially in the first folio too. It's 300, a lot of really cool characters popping in and out.
Yeah.
Are there any that stick out to you that you especially love penning?
You want me to choose who my favorite child is? How dare you? So this is Sophie's choice. This is Shakespeare's choice. It is a tough question. I mean, okay. I mean, in this one, Juliet is the lead, and she's fantastic to write for. It might be a cop out to say Hamlet. I'll say Hamlet actually. I'll cop out. Why not? It's my book. I can say what I want to say about it. The reason I enjoy writing Hamlet especially is when in the first folio, he was because he was still dealing with a lot of the stuff that from his original story or from his play. He was a little more drab or a little more emo, I guess you could say, than he was in the play. And so the Hamlet that we meet now is he's a little more humorous. He's a little more outgoing. He's a little more indecisive, if you will. Can Hamlet be more indecisive? That's the real question. To be indecisive or not to be indecisive?
That is the question.
Exactly. There's the rub. And so I enjoyed bringing back some of the humor, some of the mirth, and some of the real indecision into the Hamlet character. Having said that, my favorite scene that I wrote in this book is, and this is not a spoiler, when we first meet Othello, he's fighting a bear. Exit pursued by a bear. It's a scene I'd always wanted to do. I've talked about it for years now. Someone fighting a bear. And I was upset. This is actually before the Jason Bourne movie, like the fourth Bourne movie where Matt Damon started off as like just a fighter out in the desert or something like that. Yeah. Because it was even prior to that, I'm like, oh, I want a scene of like someone fighting a bear, like one of the Shakespeare characters. And so when it came time to introducing or reintroducing Othello into this world, I was like, he's got to fight the bear. So that was, out of all the scenes that I wrote, that was right up there. It was a lot, and the artist Stefan Tasha did an amazing job with it. He really captured the emotion of the bear as he gets punched in the face.
As you should. Now, considering that this is in the Kill Shakespeare line and this, runs adjacent with everything, knowing that there's been so many characters and, even yourself introducing a few, other characters, what has been the notes or like the Bible that's kept everything so cohesive with all the characters' trials and tribulations?
We always bring a Shakespeare expert into the play, into every project, just to make sure that I know I'm Canadian. I say project. Don't mock me for it. You can mock me for I see what you guys did there. We always bring a Shakespeare expert into the fold every time we do something. In this case it was Sir. I would say Sir Toby Malone. It's an inside joke. Dr. Toby Malone. He's a dramaturg and fantastic. It's actually an actor too. From Toronto, Australian guy. And it was great to have him on board. He's the one that said at first, he's like, you guys really need to do a Kill Shakespeare wiki just so I can keep a track of everything. And I mean, the first folio or the first two volumes were annotated with Shakespeare scholars from around the world that went through and parsed out every single Shakespeare reference that we put in. Even someone was like, oh yeah, of course I meant to put that in. Yeah, I'm that smart. But yeah, it is confusing. That's why I've had to go back and read and reread stuff. And even up until the final pass of lettering, there's one crucial element in this. I was like, oh shoot, I hadn't realized that we'd already done something, or we introduced a character like that already. And so we had to make one final. I won't reveal what it is, but yes, we had to make one final change along the way. But it is tough. It is tough because we got 5 volumes. We don't have a wiki page. But yeah, having those Shakespeare experts involved along the way helps out immensely and makes it that much stronger, because I learned very early on that if a lot of Shakespeare experts or academics will embrace this just because it's a new way of getting people excited about Shakespeare. And in essence, it's almost like fan fiction. Like, hey, what if Juliet met Hamlet or met Lady Macbeth? What would happen? But if we have some of the references wrong, or some of the little quotes or anything like that, or Easter eggs, if that's incorrect, that'll make them kind of grimace. And then if they see that twice or 3 times, then they might put the book down. And we don't want that. We want everyone to read this from start to finish.
And definitely they're going to be talking about this on April 23rd. There's no question about that. When you're going into the creative process for this, what would you say is the biggest challenge for you as a writer, taking on the mythos of Shakespeare?
I mean, in some sense, it's the pressure, just because, I mean, Shakespeare is the greatest writer, greatest entertainer of all time. So there's a certain level of expectation there. But I mean, as you guys pointed out, and as you know, I mean, I've written a number of things in existing worlds, whether it's Assassin's Creed or Luke Cage or even Nancy Drew Hardy Boys. So I kind of like the fact that there are certain roadblocks along the way. Like, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can go in that direction, but you can't go there. So actually, as a creator, one of the most difficult things, honestly, is creating an original story. And you have that blank page, like, I could do anything here. I could have I could create any sort of character. The character go anywhere or do anything. And that's where I become Hamlet. I'm like, well, I don't know. Should I write this? Should I not write this? To write or not to write? It seems like it's an ongoing theme here. But yeah, so I mean, having the hardest thing is just, the hardest thing is when you have that blank page and you know that there's so much to do. For me, the hardest thing on this book was, we not unfortunately, because I mean, we're very fortunate that we had a great publisher, we have a great publisher, Gemstone, and we can talk about a bit about their involvement and what they've been through as well with that whole Diamond bankruptcy stuff. But we were kind of confined to 120 pages. And you're like, you got 120 pages of story to tell. I'm like, but there's a lot of story I wanted to put in. There's a lot of character moments, a lot of emotion. It was tough to fit it all in. I wish I had another 20, 30 pages to write, to create, to play with. But yeah, just being confined to 120 pages was probably the most difficult aspect of it.
Yeah, with the fact, giving away no spoilers, there's a little bit of obviously edginess to the story, doing a little different things during the creative process. Was there ever a time where you were like, maybe it went too far?
Not really. I mean, like I said, again, no spoilers. Michael, I'm looking at you.
I'm gonna put like pages up on the screen.
Exactly.
Don't worry. Peek behind the curtain. He read the wrong book.
Oh, right.
He read the folio. So
I forgot.
We're all good to go.
He's so easily duped. I love it.
On page 325. I'm not through yet. Relax, guys.
You made it through page 325 or page 32?
32, maybe.
Oh, okay. Right.
He's at 32.
I can't lie to a Canadian. I'm sorry.
He's not good with numbers. Yes, or else I'll tax you I'll tariff you 25%. But
as the stream gets pulled down,
zero political.
Well, we just lost X.
Exactly. Shoot, I almost forgot the question. I think the most difficult thing to put in, or the thing with reservations, was the ending, because, as I say, there's a character that dies, and whenever you kill off a character, you always worry am I doing it too soon? Is the right time? Because I mean, not only like in the story itself, is this the right way you want to end the story? But more importantly, like in the grand scheme of things, in terms of like Kill Shakespeare, because the goal is to have Romeo versus Juliet, which is a continuation of the series. And then if this does well, knock on wood, that we'll be able to do more. If we kill off a character here in this volume, are we going to regret that 2 volumes down the line? Like, it'd be great if we could bring character X, or it'd be great if we can bring Falstaff, aka Michael Rothman, into this. It'd be great. The little known fact, we actually modeled the Falstaff character from First Folio after Mike. So, I didn't even met him yet, but I knew one day I would meet a real life Falstaff. So,
I'm just ruggedly handsome, brave, loyal. I mean, what else? What other qualities can we describe?
Wow, look at the time, guys. I got to run.
Humble.
No, definitely. But I know Michael has another question he wants to ask here.
I was going to ask, actually, We talked about stuff that got, I mean, Rich had a great question about going too far, right? And this is actually an honest question. Are there some great cutting room floor stories from this that you can tell us that didn't make it in there, that you're like, it just wasn't right for this version, but maybe
absolutely. I mean, I will, like I said, I was only given 120 pages. The character I wanted to do a lot more with was Puck. I mean, Puck is brought into the story. He's a variation of the Puck from the original books, from first folio and second folio, which will come out later this year. And I really wanted to do more of that. He's the character that I wish I could. Yeah, I wish I had more space, because if I'd had another 10 pages, there are a couple really cool scenes with him that I wanted to introduce, to like a far better introduction for him, make him a little more mischievous, make him like half man, half fairy. And he was really Del Toro. It was really felt like a Guillermo Del Toro kind of character in the original arc. In this one here, I wanted to kind of introduce that, but make him a little more comedic and a little more playful. So yeah, I really wish I could have done more with him, but don't worry, that's why we're gonna have another book. And he's right at the very end of this book, and there's spreading some mischief, and again, no spoilers. We'll see. I think what he says in that very final page is going to take the story in a nice little direction.
I mean, yeah, we can't talk spoilers, but I'm now more intrigued now. I can't really stress enough to everybody about like how they're going to need to pick this book up too, especially. But now, like, knowing that little piece of information, yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about on April 23rd. I'm just gonna put it out there. Just gonna put that out there right now.
Yeah, it's like I said, these are the Gray's characters. So I mean, in this story here, we focus a lot on Juliet, we focus a lot on Romeo, and we focus on Hamlet. Those are the three main characters. But I mean, there's Viola, there's there's all the characters. I mean, even Othello. I'd love to have more with Othello. I'd love to have more with Puck. Like, these are fantastic characters. Even Tamora from Titus. I mean, she has a bit of a backstory. She shows up in first folio, and then she doesn't appear again and then we bring her back. And even that, because in the first folio, she actually shoots at Hamlet and almost kills him. And so all of a sudden, Hamlet has to team up with this person. It's like, I kind of hate you because you want to be dead, but I guess I got to work with you. So there's a funny exchange there. But again, I would love to put more of her into it, because they have a nice little rapport between the two of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one very cool thing about this for jumping into the universe, the dynamics between all the characters. Like, say, readers are really in for a treat if this is the first time they're jumping in, but if they're already familiar with the series, I mean, they have kind of an idea. But really, I think that's one of the key points, without spoiling anything, is when you pick this up and you follow the characters' journeys. There's a lot of, back and forth with everybody else in this world, and to kind of put it all together in the sense, like you touched upon, is like, the Avengers Endgame of Shakespeare. Like, this is just one of those moments when you're seeing all these characters interact. And when you're doing this process, did you think it was going to come out as organic as it did, or did something really surprise you with some of the characters?
A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. I know that's sort of a cop-out answer. That's my second cop-out answer.
It is a cop-out answer.
It is. Thank you, Falstaff. Well, he is. I mean, as the fool, I mean, he is the one that speaks truth, more truth than anyone else in this. So, no, I mean, before I actually sit down and I write an actual page, before I sit down and write an actual page, I've beat out the entire story. Like, I know what happens on page 1. I know what happens on page 67. I know what happens on page 82. I know what happens on page 120. So for the most part, the characters and the action and the plot is already there. But as I start to write little scenes, like Bardolph is a character that this is the first time he's brought into this Kill Shakespeare world, and because Falstaff, spoiler alert, in first folio is no longer with us, I wanted kind of a comedic sidekick for Hamlet, someone to kind of play off of him, and so I kind of modeled him after Falstaff. But Bardolph, as the story went on, I enjoyed writing him more and more. And so he kind of came alive in a couple of scenes. I actually altered a couple moments to kind of focus a little bit more on him along the way. And again, that's another character that if I had another 5 pages, I would have given him another 5, because there's a reason why these are the greatest characters of all time.
Now, because they're such timeless characters and they do come out of a very different time, how hard was it for you to balance, you dropping in old English and in with, modern speech? And then, you've also occasionally dipped into the iambic pentameter. Was that for you or the reader?
Combination thereof. With Shakespeare, I'll get to iambic pentameter and the worst critique we've ever had, or the worst review we've ever gotten. I'll talk about that in a minute. Because it's Shakespeare, you can't write it to be like, yo, bro, Hamlet, how's it go? Like, you can't do like modern slang or anything. You could, but people would just mock us and make fun of us.
They would bite their thumb at you.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Wow.
Well played.
Well played.
Try to keep me around.
That's my line. Normally, I'm the one that always throws bite your thumb at me.
Sorry. I'm going all Baz Luhrmann.
I do bite my thumb at you. And I will say that Baz Luhrmann scene was another inspiration. But again, I'll get to that as well. Mike, keep in mind. So I've got to talk about iambic pentameter, and I've got to talk about Baz Luhrmann. So in terms of this one, you want it to have a different feel. You don't want it to be completely in Shakespeare verse, completely in my iambic pentameter, because that's the reason why a lot of people today just are unable to get into Shakespeare. Shakespeare's language is beautiful. It's poetic, but it was written 400 years ago, and it was written to be performed on stage, not to be read in a book in class or even in a comic. So what I kind of model after is the language. Again, it's we always pitch it was it's kind of like Game of Thrones language with a bunch of these and thous, like old English feel to it. A lot of these, a lot of thous, but thou art, that sort of thing, but still very accessible. One of the models since the creation of the original series was Deadwood, and how that was sort of like a heightened language where it kind of felt like it was natural and existed in that world. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I've tried to create in this one here. I will give a lot of props to our Shakespeare advisor, Toby Malone, because he just was immense. He went through every single page and just be like, no, Anthony, what are you doing here? Like, you have to, there should not be a thee, there should be a you, there should be a thou art. Like, he's the one that would go through and make sure that it was all as Old English sounding as possible. 2 things I promise. Iambic pentameter. When Kill Shakespeare was first released, bleedingcool.com posted 3 reviews by 3 Shakespeare experts. The first 2 were very, very positive. Hey, this is a lot of fun. I like what they're doing here. And the third one was by Kimberly Cox, who's a Shakespeare scholar. And at the time, she was the girlfriend of Frank Miller. And I think they're now married. Maybe, I'm not sure. You can fact check me on that one. And she just went on this huge rant, like, this is horrible. It made me want to throw up in my mouth. Any idiot can write Shakespeare, or any idiot can write iambic pentameter. Why did they not do it? It was lazy. And I was just, at first, when I first read it, I was like, oh no, they hate this. This is going to be horrible. And then after a couple of minutes, I was like, no, actually, this is going to be great. And I kind of hold that up as we're now 15 years later, I'm talking about it. We use those quotes in some of our blurbs on the back of books, just to say, like, hey, this is what people think of Shakespeare. You lean into it. You lean into it because, it's not going to be for everybody, and that's fine. But at least it gets people talking. Third thing, Baz Luhrmann, in terms of the references to the Western, Baz Luhrmann, right at the very beginning where you have the showdown at the gas station. Or what do they call in Australia? The petrol station?
Petrol.
I don't know. Petrol, exactly, yes. But you have that showdown, and it has like an Ennio Morricone score to it.
It's the Gasso.
I'm trying to think of how they refer to it in Bluey. I can't remember.
Are you watching Disney right now?
As a father of toddlers, yes, I watch Bluey. It is the best show on TV today. I will fight anyone to the death.
The music's fantastic too. I want to attest to that. Thank you very much.
That is the music is. Oh my god!
Na 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 na. No, stop.
Well, no, but not just the theme music, but actually, if you listen to like the Granny's theme or Dance Mode, or I know we're going off this huge tangent.
No worries. Let it roll.
Louis is the Shakespeare of modern Saturday morning cartoons, essentially. Even though anyone watching this doesn't understand what Saturday morning cartoons is, but it's poetic. It's gorgeous. If dogs can watch it, it's fantastic.
I'm not going there. You don't have the ticker ready.
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
What did I do?
Anyways, yeah. So that opening scene, maybe I didn't realize until after I'd started working on Romeo versus Juliet, and then I went back to it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'd completely forgotten that moment in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet exists with the Ennio Morricone score and the showdown. I'm like, it was one of those things. I guess it kind of stayed in my brain somewhere in my subconscious, and probably I think that is probably one of the inspirations for the story.
Absolutely, and not a bad inspiration. I mean,
no.
You're going on
like
doing
something,
something.
you can still see him go.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're doing something where you're crossing the streams. Speaking of Shakespeare, why do you think Shakespeare's themes and characterizations have transcended time? You mentioned earlier it's been about 400 years. Just to give some time, because Romeo and Juliet was written in 1596. So yes, it's been over 400 years. So why do you think that it still rings true today and Shakespeare is still, transcending all these ages, if you will, eras?
Well, you have to understand all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. That their exits and their entrances, and one man in his lifetime plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. See, I can pull out Shakespeare quotes every now and then.
All right, what's your Venmo?
Like I said, I mean, Shakespeare was the ultimate storyteller. He's the ultimate entertainer. He knew how to tell a good story, and he knew how to play into genres. I mean, he created these genres. I mean, when it comes to romance, I mean, Romeo and Juliet may not be the first romance. It wasn't the first romance, but he captured the essence of it. He captured the essence of passion, of teen romance, of opposites attract, similarities attract, like all these great things. And I think, I mean, and I mean, again, I mean, a lot of the stories there's all these different elements to, but at its core, I mean, it boils down to they're just great characters. And, I think everyone can see, even a lot of students, when they're reading Romeo and Juliet, they read other romances and they're like, oh yeah, that's just like Romeo and Juliet, like star-crossed lovers or love at first sight. I mean, it's a trope now, but when Shakespeare wrote it, I don't think it was a trope. But I mean, he created it, and there's a reason that it's been told time and time again all over the place. I mean, the story of Hamlet. I mean, I've heard a lot of arguments and read some discussions and some papers where Hamlet is Batman is Hamlet. As someone who is trying to avenge the death of a parent or loved ones, and should I kill or not to kill? I mean, really, that's that's kind of what Batman is. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of elements in play, but yeah, I mean, he was able to find the right tone. I mean, some parts they're intimate, where it's just a conversation between two characters, whether it's Othello and Iago just debating or arguing, or Romeo and Juliet just fall in love on the balcony, or just like grand epic stories. I mean, again, star-crossed lovers, and they take their lives. Othello murders, chokes his Desdemona to death. I mean, Lady Macbeth, manipulating her husband.
Shakespeare was emo. Let's be honest.
He was emo. He created genres. I mean, if you like go down the list, like horror, just go to Titus. Oh, yeah. Like Titus, if you think Tarantino movies or horror movies have a lot of blood, or if you think of The Substance had a lot of blood, watch Titus. Like that's where, like, there's a lot of stuff happening. If you're looking for romance, go to like a tragic romance. Go to Romeo and Juliet. If you want like a nice rom-com, I mean, if the stuff that Hallmark puts out today or the Netflix rom-coms, I mean, just go back to Much Ado About Nothing. I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, you're going to manipulate these people. They're opposites. They hate each other. They bicker, and then by the end of it, they fall in love. I mean, they're timeless. They're timeless classics because he knew how to tell a story.
Oh yeah, and I also think from a lot of studying and stuff and doing a lot of in school, I did Shakespearean English as a minor when I was in college. But I always thought that you also look at the socio-political aspect of Shakespeare. My favorite thing is I had a teacher once tell me, how the famous line is, if you don't learn the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And they were like, Shakespeare wrote about his time, and it seems like we just keep repeating it. So therefore, it's always going to fit in if you look at the political and social stuff that he talks about of the era, plus on top of that great storytelling. So I've always thought that there's a great mixture because you can always relate in your time frame to what he's talking about. Maybe not the language, obviously, but.
And that's the thing. And like I said, he wrote them, it was 430 years ago. Like, I mean, it was not modern day. Language has changed. Look, language is dumbing down even more, as you know, over the course of it.
Okay.
Even so, exactly. I mean, you have politicians that don't even know how to use proper punctuation on Twitter or on Blue Sky or whatever like that. You're just like, come on, man.
Well, what are you talking about? We use emojis whenever we're talking about anything, including war plans. Yes,
exactly.
This has now gone down the skibbity toilet.
Oh no!
Get out of here.
I'm in the corner, so
you're already in the corner.
Oh man! All right, so
Tom, get us back on track now.
Yeah. So with everything that's going on, what is you just wrapped up with doing the audio thriller. Don't listen to this. What, if anything, has been the biggest difference between the creative process of doing this versus the audio drama?
They're two different genres, or two different mediums. And so when it comes to comics, like I said, the first thing is that I think of is always the visuals. Like the first visual that came to mind was the high noon Western style showdown between Juliet and Romeo. The second visual image that came to me was the opening scene where you have Juliet. She's lying down in a tomb, seemingly dead, seemingly off the mortal coil, and then all of a sudden you see a shadow coming in, and it's just like the end of Romeo and Juliet, and you just assume it's Romeo. And then all of a sudden you find it's not just Romeo, there's other people there, there's other shadows. She jumps up, she's still alive, she's got a staff, and she kicks the crap out of all of them. And it's not Romeo. And so it's that sort of twist where you take something that's known from Shakespeare, and you kind of put a little twist on it. So again, it's the visuals of the first moment that Juliet sees Romeo in this one. The first moment that Juliet sees Hamlet, like how is that going to look? No spoilers, but the one of the secrets that the nunnery is hiding, which we find out in the first act, of course, so it's not a huge thing, but it was like, at first I was like, okay, it's going to be like this sort of thing. And then I was like, well, that's not visual enough. Like, so what's more interesting? So you kind of look for what's the most fascinating visual element that you can incorporate. So when it comes to comic, that's what it's all about. When it comes to audio, it's all about what is the most interesting audio elements you can put into place. So the story itself, for those that haven't listened to it, it's thriller set in the world of esports. A top gamer dies mysteriously in the opening scene. He hops on his stream. He used to have like 2 million fans. Now he's got like 7. They all hop on. He's like, look, guys, I've spent the last 2 years looking for this. I finally found it. We're going to experience it now. And then all of a sudden it's cut off. You don't know what exactly happens next. But within an hour, he dies. And then the other 7 people that are on the stream die as well. And so it's about his old team psychologist, Cressida Yang, who starts to investigate this. Like, what exactly happened? Was it murder? What exactly was it? And so, yeah, I mean, again, like that concept of it, and eventually you find out, and this is not a huge spoiler, but that it's a cutscene from an abandoned video game where if you listen to the audio element of it, then you die within an hour. So it's almost like The Ring set in the world of esports. Yeah, it's a really cool concept. I've had I have a number of friends that exist and that live in that world. I've chatted with gamers. I've chatted with people at Riot Games, like all these places. It's a fascinating location or setting for a story, and so I want to create something around it. But even the concept itself, an audio clip that can kill you, is is audio centric. It's audio first. And then, yeah, I mean, as you go through, like, what are the most interesting scenes or locations? So, I mean, I could set it here, or I could set it in a stadium. So you've got like a pack, you've got 10,000 people cheering on the gamers that are playing. And then backstage, like, what does it sound like backstage while all this stuff is happening? So kind of intercutting between the two. There's scenes where they go into an abandoned house in Japan. I mean, what does a live stream sound like in the gaming world? I mean, yeah, it's everything is audio centric. Like, what's the most interesting location for it? But at its core, though, it's all about what is the mystery, how to slowly parse out what the mystery is, and the characters. So when I sit back for an audio drama, it's always, a lot of stuff I do is audio first. So, I mean, I wrote an Assassin's Creed adaptation called Assassin's Creed Gold, starring Riz Ahmed for Audible. And that was Riz plays like a blind assassin. So, I mean, that obviously is audio centric. So he can't see, you can't understand exactly so he can't see. And you, as the listener, you don't know what's happening. I'm closing my eyes for those that can't see. But I mean, so you can't see, so you're experiencing it through someone who's blind. So it kind of adds that extra audio element to it. But yeah, I just love these are the two genres. I know my agents and managers are pushing me, like, you got to write more TV, you got to write more film. I'm like, I will. I'm doing some of that stuff, but really my passion when it comes to writing, it's comics and audio. I just love it because I think when I was young, those are the two mediums that really spoke to me the most. I mean, I used to listen to like the old classic radio serials and dramas from the 40s and 50s, like The Shadow with Orson Welles, The Lone Ranger, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, like those kinds of things. I love listening to it. I loved listening to it and then just imagining what these characters look like. And then comics, I mean, there were some, growing up in Canada, I mean, Alpha Flight. I mean, you're just like, yeah, the greatest superheroes of all time. To be able to read some of those, that kind of got me excited about Canada and about superheroes. And of course, Batman, I was like, oh, it's like Hamlet. So, but no, I mean, those are two mediums that I loved when I was a kid. And, here I am telling stories in those formats years later.
Wait a second. Alpha Flight. Correct me if I'm wrong. One of the characters is Puck?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
See, it all comes together.
It all full circle. It's all about family.
There's the rub. All the world's a stage, Michael, and all the men and women merely players.
I hate saying this, but no, it's a good thing. I just got shivers thinking I'm going to have to say this out loud. It's clear you're an absolute brilliant tactician when it comes to setups. It's true. I mean, I almost want to be like, do you have a photographic memory? Because your ability to plan things with images and the pages set up, and then you described obviously the audio setup. You are like this. It just comes so natural to you. It's kind of it's beyond impressive. I'm being honest here. Sorry, but with that, obviously you have things that are set into, and the way you describe it is, I'm butchering right now, whether it's an audio or whether it's, a Western, set in the Shakespeare world. Does that like direct how you write the characters? Obviously Westerns weren't around during, the Shakespeare times, when I was a kid and whatnot, but we were kids. Like, does that dictate how you kind of write the dialogue and write these characters and how they, obviously, and weave it into their narrative?
Does the genre or does the medium?
I think where it's set. So like if it's set, like, obviously, Romeo versus Juliet is set as almost like kind of like a Western. That's your vision of it. Does it, because do you pull in, obviously you have to take some license with it and be creative with it. Does that affect how you change a little bit of whether it's the dialogue or how they act or what they do? Same thing with, obviously you had mentioned, that's why I have the worst questions when I'm thinking the most about it. And I'm thinking the most about this because the way you described, Riz's character in Assassin's Creed, and like obviously having to now write that character from the perspective of someone who's a blind assassin, it's fascinating to me. Like it's just kind of coming to me now, but like you clearly have such a great grasp of these projects when you go in. And so I was thinking like, it's probably a terrible question now that I've talked
No,
for
no,
like
no,
5
no,
minutes.
no, no, no,
But, yeah, does it dictate kind of how you write these characters, where you decide from the onset to set them, you know, and the world that you set them in?
I don't think it's the world that you set in. I think what is the personality of the character.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of like Romeo versus Juliet. I mean, Juliet is not a very comedic character because, I mean, she's dealing with a lot right now. I mean, she's still, you could say she has PTSD from everything that happened 5 years previously with, I mean, I haven't diagnosed that, and I haven't, like, it's not something I put in myself, but it's sort of in the back of my mind. I was like, well, yeah, she still hasn't gotten over everything that happened. And this is sort of, in some sense, this storyline is almost therapy for her. Towards the end, and again, no spoilers on what happens to her at the end. Yeah, I mean, whereas, you know, I spoke about Hamlet. I mean, Hamlet, I tried to make him a little more comedic, a little more witty, much like he is in the play. And then in terms of, you know, again, you have to find a nice balance between the characters. So, I mean, like, some of them are going to be straight laced, some of them are going to be very, very direct and to the point, and some of them are going to be more comedic or sarcastic. What I loved about Don't Listen to This is, and maybe I'm answering your question, your original question, because it's in the world of esports, and a lot of the gamers I've spoken to, they're very sarcastic. They're very witty and pop culture savvy, but they're very sarcastic. And so Dr. Cressida Yang, who's the lead of it, the team psychologist, she's very sarcastic. Blue Devil, who is her antagonist / partner in crime in this one. I mean, she's the one that basically blamed Blue Devil, who's one of the players. She blamed Cressida, the former team psychologist, for ruining Warstorm, who's the gamer who dies at the beginning, ruining him. She's the one that dubs Cressida as Cruella de Vil or Cruella Yang. You know, like, basically, like, forced her out of the game industry. So they're forced to team up together, but they're both sarcastic as hell. And I enjoy writing sarcastic characters. And I kind of wish I could do a little, I know, it's just my personality. And I do wish I could do a little bit more of that in the Kill Shakespeare world or Romeo versus Juliet. But, you know, I think I was able to include some witty moments in there, but not as much because this story itself didn't allow it. One of the things that I want to do is one of the future installments is I do want to tell more of a traditional rom-com. And people ask me, like, what characters have I not brought into the Kill Shakespeare world that I want to? And number one is Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing. I mean, Benedict as well, but Beatrice, because I love, it's my favorite comedy of all of Shakespeare's works, and I want to get them in, and I want to have something that's a little lighter. And in that case, I will be able to write, you know, the characters I'll be able to create, and the dialogue I'll write for it will be a little lighter, and a little less heavy, and a little less PTSD-esque, I guess you could say.
Right. So you kind of answered part of my question already.
Good. Beat you
nice.
to it.
But I'm going to now evolve that question. So first folio is out. Second folio is coming out by the end of this year. Obviously, we know April 23rd we're getting Juliet versus Romeo, or Romeo versus Juliet. Sorry, I said it backwards. And so it's not about if the story is going to continue, but how many more stories are you looking forward to doing in the Kill Shakespeare line?
Connor and I have mapped out, if we are allowed to do this, if demand is there, and I hope and I think it will be, we'd like to do another 4 stories, another 4 volumes in the story. And we've roughly have mapped out what would happen in each of those 4. We know what the ending is going to be. We just need to be able to write to that. And one of the things I've loved doing in the Kill Shakespeare world is that if you take a step back, and I don't think everyone realizes this, but every single story or every single volume is a different genre. I mean, the first folio, which is the first 12 issues, technically the first 2 volumes, but I mean, that's your fantasy Lord of the Rings style, like quest, epic, battles, that sort of thing, you know, fantasy. What was volume 3 is more of a horror that plays off the Tempest and the island, Prospero's Island, where it's more of a horror story. Volume 4 was more of a pirate adventure. Volume 5 is more like, this is what story, Juliet's backstory from the end of the play to where she begins in first folio. And then there's a bunch of different genres that I want to play with. I want to do a heist story. I want to do a rom-com. And, there's a couple other ones as well. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, there's a lot. I just love playing in genres. That's, to me, it's, again, there's proving that Michael's question was actually very was wise. It was a great question. Is that I do have to write towards the genre, and I love writing in the genre. So whether it's a noir story like I've done in Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys tales, or a fantasy, or I think some of the best work we did in Kill Shakespeare was Volume 3. I mean, people ask me which is the best. I mean, I think Romeo versus Juliet is now the best. Some planted it, but Volume 3 is the horror one. I mean, there's some really cool stuff, some tricks we did. I think issue number 2, which is the second chapter, I think it was a mirror episode or mirror issue, so that page 1 and page 24 mirrored itself, and then same thing with page 2 and page 23 and page 3 and page 22, like that sort of thing. If you look at it, it's like it's in terms of the layout of the pages, the number of panels, what's happening. It's one of the issues I'm proudest of that I've ever written. But yeah, so I kind of write towards the different genre, and I kind of try to change things up along the way.
Now, because you're changing things up, and I'm going to take a page out of Rich's book here and evolve this question.
Yes.
Since
evolution.
That's right. Since Shakespeare, has been readapted how many times and how many different genres, yourself included, what is one of your favorite retellings of Shakespeare's? And I'll put it out to everybody here too as well.
For Romeo and Juliet, again, there's 2. One is Baz Luhrmann's. I think just because it hit at the right time. I mean, I was in high school. It was just, you hadn't seen Shakespeare that way. And it got, maybe it's because of DiCaprio and Danes, but it got like all the especially all the teenage girls just loved it, and they got into Shakespeare. It was just the look of it, taking it, like modernizing it, but putting a little twist on it. The soundtrack, incredible. And then the other one for Romeo and Juliet, which is to me is still the greatest Shakespeare adaptation of all time, is West Side Story. I mean, of any of Shakespeare's productions, I mean, it's West Side Story. I view that as the ultimate American musical. I know a lot of people would not agree with me or fight me to the death on that one. But to me, it's just look at what's happening in today's world. I mean, with immigration, with just people trying to protect their own turf. I mean, just everything is just, to me, that the musical is the most American. I mean, I know people always say Moby Dick or Mark Twain is the writer, or Huckleberry Finn. I'm like, to me, West Side Story is the greatest American story ever told. And I mean, that of course is a direct adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. So that's probably my favorite adaptation.
Michael?
Ooh, well, I did kind of like the Josh Hartnett Othello that came out like 20 years ago with who played Othello in that movie? It was
Mekhi Phifer.
Yes,
this is my life.
This is a movie. This is Mekhi Phifer. Julia Stiles. I mean, you can't go wrong. Come on, that's literally my childhood right there.
Yeah.
Rich?
I was going to say that was one of mine as well, because of obviously growing up in that time period. But in a more recent one, which is kind of weird because it's actually technically based on the original Norse tale, but it also takes from Shakespeare as well, is The Norseman. Because it is Hamlet. It's what Shakespeare's inspiration for what Hamlet is. But they also, because in this world, obviously we have Shakespeare's version, they borrowed also from Shakespeare as well. So it's kind of like an interesting back and forth.
Yeah.
Ken?
I'll give you points for that one.
I gotta say, it's got to be the Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet. And I believe Garbage did the main song, or was it Shirley Manson?
Yep.
And I was big into Garbage in the 90s. And I'm going to throw an honorary mention in because Joe Quesada's new Amazing Comics, I believe their lead book is kind of an Othello adaptation.
Ooh,
when that comes out. I'm blanking because I remember they talked about this at last year's New York Comic Con. And I am like 99.9% sure it's something to do with that. I can't think of the name, but it's Amazing Comics. It's Joe Quesada's new thing. So when that comes out, definitely I want to kind of do the comparisons when it happens.
Oh my
For
gosh,
me,
yeah.
I'm just going to say one, obviously, I think it's a generational thing for us. It is Baz Luhrmann, but also for my backup, 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Taming of the
Yeah.
Shrew, baby.
Oh,
good call.
That's a good one.
That's
We're still on
yeah.
the X. Yeah, man.
That
Yeah.
was Heath and that was Heath right up
Yep.
the, you know,
Mhm.
fresh and
I mean, look at
Yeah.
all the names in that movie, you know, where they've all gone on to.
JLG.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah.
But now we've all just aged ourselves into what age group we're all in.
But this is
I'm still the youngest.
But this is where we have the great retelling
No,
that new
no.
fans can jump into on April 23rd when Romeo versus Juliet, a Kill Shakespeare Adventure drops. You want to make sure you get your orders in right now. We do have the link in the bio of this episode and on the podcast when it drops out. Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We definitely have to talk to you when this book comes out after. So you call full spoiler into it because there's a
Yes.
lot going on with this book.
Oh, I'd love
It's
to do that.
amazing.
I would love to do that. Yes.
Absolutely.
As long as Michael's not here.
Oh, no problem. Just
that'll be
show
in his
me.
writer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll talk to the boss about that. We'll have to see.
Exactly.
But on behalf of our gracious founder who's joined us for today, Michael,
Aw.
Rich, Tom, and myself, we want to thank everybody for tuning in for another edition of Turn a Page. And we'll end it like we always do. When you're at the shops and you have a great book in your hands, such as Romeo versus Juliet, a Kill Shakespeare Adventure, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them turn a page. We'll see you next week.
I'm out.